In every generation, there comes a moment when heaven leans closer to the earth, when prophecy stops feeling like distant scripture and begins to breathe behind the headlines, when the unseen hand of God moves gently yet unmistakably across the timeline of humanity. Today, we stand in one of those moments. A world full of noise, wars, corruption, technology, deception, and a rising tide of instability feels like it is teetering on the edge of something enormous. People sense it. Nations feel it. Even unbelievers whisper about it. But the Bible spoke it long before the world recognized it, because prophecy is not a guess, not a prediction, and not a human interpretation. It is the voice of God woven across ages.
This message is not about fear, prediction dates, or trend chasing. It is about understanding something God does repeatedly through Scripture. He moves in sequences. He works through patterns. He reveals himself through domino effects. Prophecy is rarely a single event. It is an unfolding. One moment pushes the next. One movement triggers another. One sign unlocks the next piece. And today we explore the very heartbeat of that sequence, what I call the prophetic domino effect. It is the accelerating chain of events that begins with one significant sign and ends with the completion of God's divine timeline. But before we look forward, we must understand how God has worked in the past. From Genesis to Revelation, the structure never changes. God sets a warning, the world ignores it, pressure increases, a final sign appears, a shift occurs, and then the dominoes begin to fall one after another in perfect order. Before the flood, wickedness filled the earth, violence grew, darkness dominated hearts. But the final trigger was not violence or hatred, but rejection of truth. When the world closed its ears to righteousness, the warning went out, build an ark. Noah, a lone voice in a godless generation, worked and preached and waited, and then the first drop of rain became the first domino, and once that domino fell, the others did not stop until the last door of the ark closed. Before the Exodus, Israel cried under oppression. Pharaoh hardened his heart. Egypt worshipped its idols. God sent signs. Pharaoh resisted. The signs increased. The resistance strengthened. And then the final plague triggered the unstoppable chain that led to crossing the Red Sea. Again, a domino effect. Before the birth of Jesus, 400 years of silence stretched across Israel. No prophet spoke. No new scripture came. No sign appeared. And then a voice cried in the wilderness, "Prepare the way of the Lord." One moment sparked the fulfillment of centuries of prophecy. And again, the domino effect moved into place. Prophecy always begins silently. The world rarely notices the first tremor. But when the first domino tips, everything accelerates. And that is where we stand now, in a world that is trembling beneath the weight of its own choices. Nations are aligning in ways that match ancient prophecy. Economies are shifting in ways never seen before. Technology is advancing faster than the moral capacity of humanity can handle. Artificial intelligence is rewriting the boundaries of knowledge, ethics, identity, and even faith. Natural disasters are increasing not only in number, but in their unpredictability. People are spiritually numb, yet spiritually hungry at the same time. Fear rises, but discernment decreases. Hope fades, yet prophecy awakens. All of this is the shaking before the fall of the first major prophetic domino. But what is that first domino? Many ask the wrong question, focusing on a single event like the eruption of global war, the collapse of a superpower, the rise of a world leader, the fall of a global currency, or the next major disaster. But prophecy does not begin with a single shock. It begins with global pressure, that forces humanity to cry out for one unified solution. The first domino is not the disaster. It is the desperation created by the disaster. It is the pressure that pushes nations into the arms of a single authority. Every prophetic age begins not with chaos, but with the illusion of salvation from chaos. Right now, the world is marching toward that illusion. People across nations are crying for stability, safety, financial relief, and global unity. They are tired. They are anxious. They feel unprotected. They want someone or something to restore order. And this desire is exactly what sets the stage for the second prophetic domino, the rise of a unified global system presented as the solution to worldwide instability. This is not the rise of the Antichrist yet. This is the rise of structure. Before a throne is filled, a throne must be built. Before a leader appears, a platform must be prepared. Before a world bows, a world must be broken. And that breakdown is happening silently, strategically, steadily. The world is being conditioned. The stage is being arranged. People are being prepared without even realizing it. A system that promises safety, order, convenience, and peace is precisely the system that eventually gains control of every soul that follows it blindly.
The prophetic domino effect always contains a moment when humanity embraces something dangerous because it appears beneficial. Eve embraced the fruit because it looked good. Israel embraced idols because they felt comforting. The crowds embraced Barabbas because he felt like a better solution than Jesus. The world will embrace a global system because it appears to unite, protect, and empower them. But behind the appearance lies the structure of the beast. The third domino is invisible to the physical eye, but obvious to the spiritual one. It is the moral collapse of society. Before the Antichrist rises politically, the world must fall spiritually. This is the quiet domino that most people ignore. The increase of immorality, confusion, and rebellion against truth is not accidental. It is prophetic. The rise of ideologies that erase boundaries, distort identity, replace truth with emotion, and silence righteousness is not random. It is preparation. Any society that abandons truth becomes easy to control. Any generation that loses morality becomes vulnerable to deception. When people stop loving truth, they start believing lies. But the most dangerous part is that people will still feel spiritual. They will still attend religious places. They will still speak of faith. But they will not seek righteousness. They will reject what convicts them and embrace what comforts their sin. This is the domino of deception, a world that believes it is enlightened but is actually walking in darkness. The fourth domino is pressure on believers, not persecution in the traditional sense, but marginalization, mockery, social rejection, labels, accusations. Believers will be seen as barriers to unity, obstacles to progress, enemies of peace. The world will not eliminate faith. It will redefine faith, and anyone who rejects the redefinition becomes the enemy. This is when the true church separates from the crowd. This is when the wheat and tares begin to reveal themselves. This is when spiritual strength matters more than religious tradition. Then comes the fifth domino, the sudden global event that shifts everything at once. Scripture does not specify its shape, but it does emphasize its impact. It will shock nations into emergency mode. It will break financial systems, expose weaknesses, and force global cooperation. Whether it is a war that erupts unexpectedly, a major assassination that destabilizes alliances, a disaster so large it shakes entire continents, a cyber blackout that shuts down global networks, or a collapse that crashes economies overnight, the effect will be the same. The world will enter a moment of forced transformation. And once that happens, the prophetic dominoes accelerate rapidly. The sixth domino is alignment. Prophecy is never fulfilled in isolation. It is fulfilled in patterns. Alliances shift toward ancient configurations mentioned in Scripture. Israel becomes the center of global attention. Nations of the East increase in power. Economic systems seek unification. Technology merges